Welcome back. We are still on the third loop of the fourth arc. And last time we went over everything that happened in the anime and the light novel. This time we're going to be going over the web novel. So I'm going to go over everything that happened, but I'm going to try not to go into details on everything. So a quick recap. Subaru woke up after being killed at the abandoned sanctuary. We know that he was killed by the Great Rabbit, but he didn't see that. So he woke up in Sanctuary, got Amelia help to get back to get some sleep, and now he is going to go talk to Roswaal. He tried to do this in the other versions, but he got interrupted. In this version, he does actually go and talk to him right now. So they ask questions back and forth. Subaru asks about the contract with Beatrice, which Roswaal doesn't have one with her. She has one from about 400 years ago. And man, 400 years ago comes up a lot throughout the ReZero story. It's almost like a bunch of important shit happened around that time. Anyway, Roswaal asks if Subaru remembers, and Subaru doesn't know what he's talking about. Roswaal says, "It seems I won't be reaching it." And later on in the conversation, he says, "My questions hardly carry any meaning anymore." So it's pretty obvious that whatever Subaru needs to remember is important to Roswaal, but he's not gonna say what it is or give a hint or anything. I don't know. It's gonna come back up again pretty soon, so I'm gonna wait before I say anything more. Subaru then asks about Beatrice's gospel, and we get a lot of the same info that's in the light novel. Roswaal brings up the fact that he's had run-ins with the cult before because he's the landlord of a witch's place, and then he gives his 3 reasons on why he thinks their gospels are defective or inferior or whatever. The big difference in this discussion is that Roswaal brings out his gospel. He says there are only 2 like it in the world. Beatrice has one, and he has the other one right here. The web novel has already hinted at this. This is the book that he had that he was caressing a few loops ago, which by extension also means that Ram knows about this gospel too. So that'll be important for later on. Roswaal also says that Subaru won't be able to read his gospel, which is criticism that he had for the witch cult's gospels. So I don't know how his is really any different from theirs. My guess is that maybe it's just more specific on what the future is going to hold, but I don't know why he would throw out that criticism if it's the exact same thing that his gospel does. The gospels really need to be a video on their own, so I'm gonna save that, I guess. By its very nature, the gospel shows the future to some extent. Some of what's happening right now, Roswaal would know about beforehand. And he actually says that he has set up this current situation in order to follow the gospel. Now, he doesn't say how much of the current situation he knows, but he might have known what was going to happen to Rem and went with it anyway. So Subaru gets pissed. And he essentially tries to kill him. He grabs Roswaal by the throat and starts to choke him with the full intent to kill him. He's not playing around. This isn't a joke. He wants Roswaal to die right now. And given what Roswaal said whenever Subaru didn't remember, and some stuff that I know about from the future, I really don't think Roswaal cares all that much. I doubt that he's really fighting back very much, if at all. Garfield actually comes in and saves Roswaal by smacking the absolute shit out of Subaru. Almost caves his head in. And I'm not being hyperbolic here. He probably did cave his head in, but he also has healing magic, which feels like it was given to him just because of what happened here. So Subaru wakes up in the middle of nowhere, tied up and blindfolded. And Garfield actually apologizes for nearly killing him. Was just trying to give you a little tap. Didn't imagine you'd get to death's door that easy. Heard you were Amelia's knight, so wound up overestimating, thinking you were something more. Okay, he kind of apologizes. But Subaru understands. He let his anger go, so he doesn't blame Garfield for what happened. But that's just kind of Subaru's personality trait. He is forgives far too easily, in my opinion, and that could be another video all on its own. Anyway, Garfield mentions the witch, and Subaru remembers Echidna. And it's the same thing that happened in one of the past loops. In the web novel, Subaru has forgotten about her until someone mentions her. And I think this is something that happens in every version. This is something that's going to come up later. So I think this is something that does happen. But the web novel seems to be the only version that is playing up to this. Like the other versions don't really use this fact very much, to the point that it just doesn't, whenever it comes up later, it doesn't really have that much of an impact to me whenever I was watching and reading it. Whereas the web novel definitely feels different. But I'll talk about that more whenever we get to that point. Subaru thinks that Echidna is the thing that Roswaal wanted him to remember. And I kind of agree with that. I still don't understand why Roswaal didn't mention that or give a hint or just something to jog his memories. Maybe that's in the book that he's not allowed to say that or mention it or anything. I don't know. I would imagine it's going to come up in the future, then I just don't remember it offhand. So we'll talk about it later, I guess. So the web novel skipped over the conversation in the forest, which I think is fine. They've already had this conversation with Subaru and Ryuzu earlier. The difference is that the other versions do a better job with the Ryuzu name reveal, but the web novel already uses a different name than what the other versions are using anyway. So I guess it's fine. And it really does feel like this whole naming thing with the Ryuzus is kind of, or was thought up after the fact and was put into the light novel afterwards, which is fine, but it's getting more noticeable now. Since they didn't have that conversation out in the woods, Garfield brings up that he can't leave the sanctuary. But Subaru did have that conversation with Ryuzu earlier, so he calls him out on the lie. And this is where things get a little weird. Garfield makes a comment that is a little too direct and on point for Subaru, and he starts to think that maybe Garfield also has a gospel. And I understand why he came to that conclusion. I mean, Beatrice just showed him a gospel. He came back, and then Roswaal showed him a gospel, and now Garfield is making comments like he knows more than what he should. At this point, Subaru is kind of primed to see the gospel everywhere. Garfield does say some vague things that kind of hint at him having a gospel. Like it really does feel like Tope wanted you to think that he might have one. But I think this is alluding to something else that's not going to come up until much later on in the story. So I'm going to wait before I dive into that. So Garfield then goes to leave and he tells Subaru that he's going to stay tied up there because he did just try to kill Roswaal. And they're going to use him as motivation to push Amelia to complete the trial, basically saying that she has to complete it in order to save him. Subaru doesn't try to kill himself, so he's not actually gagged in this version, and he is there for 3 days. He gets 2 meals a day, and he's had 6 meals, so 3 days. Yay, math. This is where he says that it's the fifth day, and the day that the mansion is going to get attacked. And why I think the comment that was made in the anime about this being the fifth day was just a carryover from the web novel. The web novel does have an extra day, which would make sense for it being the fifth day, but I think the other versions make more sense that it's going to happen on the fourth day or the end of the fourth day. Yeah. So I'm keeping my math on the timeline the same. I just think there was a mix up there between the web novel and the anime. During this time, he thinks about killing himself, but decides that he shouldn't because he's just going to end up right back where he is because he hasn't really learned anything new yet. And he seems to come to this conclusion in every version, but I like this version better because he thinks through his action before doing anything. In the other versions, he just tries to kill himself the second he gets caught. And he hears someone else come in with Garfield whenever they bring him food and take care of cleaning him. It's not like they brought him anywhere to go to the bathroom. Look, it's not something that's brought up in any other version. I don't know why the web novel feels like you need to know that that was done, but I would guess that that was done for every version. So Subaru knows that someone else is helping Garfield, but just like every other version, he's blindfolded, he can't see. Otto eventually comes in and saves him, and there's an interaction that describes Subaru's physical state, and I'm just gonna read the web novel. Otto, this might be because I just took off the blindfold, but the vision in my right eye is bad. Or actually, I can't see anything. What happened? I'm rather hesitant to reply, but would you like a refined glossing over or a direct telling of the facts? Refined so that I don't get any shock, with frank content so that I can accept reality. Certainly greedy. Natsuki, upon the physiognomical starboard of your perception, there is mantled a cloaking of umbra, beyond which no illumination may transcend. I didn't ask for it in tuning, but yeah, that's enough. So to put it simply, he lost his right eye. Like I said, Garfield caved his head in. He was able to keep Subaru alive, but he wasn't able to save his eye. And we already know that this is a failed loop, so it's really not going to matter in the long run, but for now, he is half blind. Subaru makes a joke that Otto is so forgettable that it sometimes takes him a minute to distinguish him from the Apple Store guy. Which, it's such a good insult. Luckily, Otto doesn't know who that is, so he doesn't really take it all that hard. During their talk, we get a slightly different version of Sanctuary than we did in the other versions. The relationships between the different groups are kind of breaking down, or pretty much breaking down, to the point that it's almost guaranteed that there's going to be a revolt. Subaru is confused because he's been at this point before in the past loops, and it's never really been that bad. Otto brings up that the villagers are very connected to him, so his absence is making a huge difference. In fact, he brings up a point that I haven't really thought about before. Roswaal is the lord of the land. He is in such a high position that the villagers don't feel like they can just go talk to him whenever they have a problem with something. Subaru, being Subaru, has no problem talking to anybody, regardless of social position. He is a perfect representative for the villagers. And now that he's not there, they are feeling like they are no longer heard, which is adding to the tension. Otto wants to free Subaru so that he can help with getting everyone out of Sanctuary. Subaru can convince everybody to leave and be a distraction for Garfield, who should be on Lewis's side, but he's also kind of acting like he's not. Subaru points out that the building that they're in looks to be a DIY project, which is very different from the other versions. This building is made out of wood and looks like it was just thrown together, but in the other versions, it looks like it was made out of stone. Otto found this place by using his divine protection and following the bugs. The bugs aren't scared of this place like they are in the other versions, which I actually kind of like this version better. It kind of makes sense to me that Subaru would just be thrown into some random put together shack rather than an actual building. We then get the friend scene, and it's pretty much the same. They have their moment, they leave, and they meet up with Ram, which has got to be a scary moment for Subaru. I mean, he did try to kill Roswaal, and then he just stumbles upon Ram before he's ever told that she is helping. He even makes a joke that's not a joke about them running in separate directions so that she can't catch both of them. But Otto is a little slow on the uptake. Ram says she would have killed him a few days ago, but Garfield actually calmed her down, which seems like a weird detail for me. Like, I don't know what he could have said to get through to her to calm her down. Maybe he said something about Subaru's eye, but I feel like that's not enough for Ram. So I have no idea what he could have said to change how she felt, and I have no idea why he would have in the first place, especially given what's going to be happening here soon. There's really no reason for him to want her to calm down. I don't know. It's a weird detail to me. But this whole setup makes more sense as to why Subaru is confused on her helping. Ram's not going to jump to help them, but if Roswaal wants her to, she will. But this is the only version that it really doesn't make sense for Roswaal to want to help Subaru. Subaru can only think of one reason why she would be there, so he just comes out and asks her, why is she helping? The only good reason he can think of is that Roswaal told her to be there, which means they are still following his gospel, which he is done with that shit. Ram is still very much loyal to Roswaal, so she's not going to say anything that's going to, or that may come back to hurt him. But she does assure Subaru that none of this is in the gospel. In fact, she can be there because none of this is in the gospel. I mean, that's something that's going to end up coming back later. They talk about the plan a bit. They have about an hour and a half to get everybody out before the trial is done, at least going by the past few tries. Subaru's job is to convince the villagers to leave. And he's a little worried that Garfield is going to follow them outside of the barrier. In this version, Subaru already knows that Garfield can leave the barrier, and so does Ram. But Subaru can't really say anything about why Garfield might follow them because it's related to his smell. So they just kind of leave it at that and don't really make any plans whatsoever about him chasing. Instead of going to talk to Roswaal like in the other versions, they go and talk to the villagers and convince them to leave. And it takes like 15 minutes for them to be fully ready to go. Like they saw Subaru was safe and they were like, all right, let's get the fuck out of here. Subaru realizes something important here. A lot of the work done to save the kids was done by Rem. But now that she's technically gone, all of the praise for saving them now goes to Subaru and Subaru alone. So a lot of the reasons that they are so attached to him and the reason why they love him so much is because they genuinely think that everything that happened in Arc 2 was done solely by Subaru. And I think I may have to pay attention more to stuff like this going forward, because this is a side effect of Gluttony's ability that is actually helping Subaru. I mean, not overall. I mean, he's still lost Rem, but there is some positive to this that is helping Subaru now that he is getting some of the praise that he may or may not have gotten before. Anyway, it's something that I'll try to pay attention to going forward. So they get a caravan going with all of the villagers, and on the way, Otto says that the animals are warning about something dangerous coming, and it's obviously Garfield. So he shows up, cuts them off, and everything comes to a halt. Subaru starts negotiating with him, hoping that they can leave without any problems, but Garfield actually isn't there to stop them. He's going to let them go without any problems, except for Subaru. That's the deal that he wants to make. Everyone else gets to leave, but Subaru has to stay behind. And Subaru is all up for that deal, so he goes and convinces everyone else to go on without him. Otto and Ram are not fans of this plan. Ram even says, "Have you not realized, Botosu, what it is you are saying?" And I think she realizes what's about to happen, but we'll see it here pretty soon. Subaru tells Otto not to go to the mansion because they're already dead. He doesn't say that last part out loud, he just thinks it. And he does feel bad that he's basically leaving them to die, but he also knows that he can't save them. And he's already given up on this loop anyway. Ram, Otto, and the villagers agree to the plan, and they set off, leaving Subaru, Garfield, and Patricia behind. Garfield points out that Subaru hasn't asked about Amelia or the trial, and Subaru is just like, you try to use me as motivation, so of course nothing was going to change. Not exact words. Once again, Subaru's words have managed to piss off Garfield, and he just snaps. And it's a complete surprise to Subaru. He's just sitting there on Patricia, turns, and Garfield has jumped and is about to karate chop Subaru's head off. He is saved by a wind attack from Ram, who had secretly stayed behind. This is what she saw coming. Apparently Garfield was just waiting for his chance to kill Subaru without any consequences. He says he didn't kill Subaru because he wanted to avoid a riot with the villagers. And now that they are gone, there's no reason to keep him alive. And I feel like there's some truth to that, but I don't think that's the whole truth. My guess is he finally realizes that he can't hold Subaru back, and killing him is just the best option. He seems to come to that conclusion in every version, but maybe that's just my imagination here, so I could be wrong. Patricia runs off with Subaru objecting the entire time. And we get a little bit more conversation between Ram and Garfield. Garfield wants to know why Ram is doing all of this. I don't get it, Ram. If this ain't you following Roswell's orders, can't think of a single reason why you do that. Truly? Do you not understand why I'm doing this, Garf? Garfield realizes what's going on and he gets super pissed. I think he's finally starting to realize what's going on, and he does not like it. There's a little bit of back and forth of them trying to get the other person to back down, and then we get this. Then, Garf, would you abandon all except me? Out of every single thing in this world, choose me. Look only at me. Love only me. Devote all to me. Be loved by only me. Pardoned only by me. Sacrifice your everything only to me. Are you capable? I am. If you will not make me a truly important thing to you, I will not bend to you, Garf. I will not belong to anyone. Farewell, Garf. Goodbye, Ram. And that's the last words we get from them. I don't know why I love this conversation so much. I really wish that it was included in the other versions. And I think it's pretty apparent that the reason why she is doing all of this is because of Roswell. All of that talk about devoting yourself to one person is what she is doing for him. She tries to say that she's also doing it for Garfield and Frederica, but I don't really believe that, and neither does Garfield. I think that's why he gets so pissed in this moment. He's starting to realize just how much she loves Roswell, and she's perfectly willing to throw her life away for him, even if he's not the one asking her to do it. At least that's the way it comes off to me. Obviously, I could be wrong. And I think it's a little ironic that she was talking about how she won't be owned by anyone, even though she's about to give her life away for Roswell when he definitely doesn't have the same feelings for her, but that'll be discussed later. Back to Subaru and Patricia. They catch up to the caravan, and Otto is confused, but before Subaru can really explain what's going on, we get the same upheaval that happens in the other version. But the difference is that Patricia catches on quicker and starts running towards the front of the caravan closer to the barrier. That does mean that the villagers take the hit instead of Subaru, which is somewhat similar to the other versions, I guess. They were just trying to leave in this version, whereas the other versions, they were actually trying to help Subaru. Of course, it's Garfield in his beast form, and Subaru wonders if this is the reason that the sanctuary was completely empty in the last loop. And remember, at this point in the story, he hasn't seen the rabbit, so I guess it makes sense that he would wonder if there was a connection there, but we already know there's not. Garfield catches up to Subaru, killing a bunch of people in the process. Subaru yells about Ram, and Garfield just holds up a claw, and there's a part of her clothing still attached to one of his claws. And in the other versions, we're never told exactly what happened to her, but I think it's pretty well implied that she died. This version is just far more clear on what happened there. Garfield tries to attack Subaru, but he gets stopped by something. It's not really clear, according to the text. At least it wasn't clear to me. But I think this is introducing an ability that Subaru will get later on in this arc. But again, I'm not sure, so I'm not going to make too many guesses on that. Garfield gets knocked back, and he tries to attack again, but gets rammed by Patricia. And she loves just running into people at full force in the web novel. This isn't the first time. I'm sure it will not be the last time. I think I've even said that exact same thing for this exact same scenario somewhere else. But she does that, and then she does get caught up in an attack and almost dies. The villagers step in and throw rocks, similar to what happened in the other versions. The difference is they weren't there to help Subaru originally. They were just trying to escape and they ended up getting caught up in all of the madness here. Which is not to downplay how badass they are. In this version, they straight up say that if Subaru is going to die, they'll just die with him. Like they are 100% ride or literally die. But just like the other versions, they don't stand a chance. Subaru tries to yell at them to stop, but it's too late. Patricia, who is very much barely alive, tries to grab him and run. And Subaru realizes something, and I'm just gonna quote it. Patricia had noticed the existence of the beast. Noticed, and to raise Subaru's chances of survival by even a little, dashed to the location with more prey. Everything to protect Subaru. Patricia is fucking cold. She knowingly sacrifices the villagers for even a chance of Subaru surviving. In fact, so many people here are willing to throw away anything and everything for a chance to help Subaru, which is just crazy. Patricia throws him through the barrier as she dies. But he doesn't teleport. Remember, in this version, he does not have the crystal. Instead, he just bounces downhill and then passes out. He wakes up the next morning with a stick through, I think, around here. It says it's like 2 fingers thick and it's through the bone. So he manages to crawl his way back up the hill and he finds nothing. Well, no people. The wreckage is still there, so he knows that everything that happened, but there's no people, no corpses, no blood, none of that. Once again, no one is in Sanctuary. And this is a little confusing to me. In the other versions, he's at least teleported away, so it makes sense that the Great Rabbit doesn't find him immediately. But in this version, he just kind of rolls away a little bit. He's not really that far away from everything. I mean, it could be that it's just luck. It could be that he was low on mana. I don't know. Honestly, it kind of feels like bullshit to me. I was wondering how the web novel was going to handle this whole situation without the crystal. But I guess it works out fine without the teleporting. I mean, it's not like he was teleported outside of Sanctuary to begin with. So him just going to a slightly different spot than the other versions, it works out well enough, I guess. It's not different enough to cause any problems. Subaru doesn't find anybody, so he starts to head towards the graveyard. In the last loop, that is where he was when he died. So he is just looking for some way to die. And it works. He gets there, he finds the rabbit, and he has an absolutely horrific death. So that's what happens in the web novel for this loop. There are differences, obviously, but by the end of it, I actually think it's starting to line up with the other versions a little better than the last few loops anyway. Now he knows how strong Garfield is. He knows more about Roswaal's connection to all of this, at least in this version, but the other version should catch up with that pretty soon. Most importantly, he knows what's coming for Sanctuary. The Great Rabbit is no joke, and Subaru just experienced one of his worst deaths so far. Well, at least in the top 3. No, I'm not about to start ranking his deaths. At least not in this video. Next time, we will see how he handles all of the shit that happened in this loop. See ya.